Tipperary beat Laois 232 to 18 points. Now, I was there last year in Colin Bonner's first game, and it was like, it was monsoon-type weather in Port Laois. Tipperary won by 4 points that day. And at times, we're trying to work the ball through the lines, and there was a sense that a bit more of a modern approach was going to happen. By the way, we saw nothing but running the ball through the lines between Wexford and Galway.
Yeah.
And it's going to be more and more of a feature. And I'm wondering, is it going to be as exciting to watch? Probably not, because we love to see this kind of blood and thunder hurling of the ball flying 100 yards time after time. That's just not going to happen anymore. It doesn't mean it won't still be exciting. But what was this performance like from Liam Cahill's side? First competitive outing, we'll say. Our Tipp back?
I actually just tweeted, our Tipp back, our resident Premier man thinks so. I tell you what, I kind of said it to you, Shane, before. The brief highlights I had seen of them in the Munster League, they do just look a totally different proposition. They look like a team that have a clear, definite plan of how to play, a lot of hard running, going through the lines, not wasting ball, should we say, always trying to get lads on the front foot, always trying to create the overlaps were everywhere the other night, and trying to create the overlap for goals as well. They only got 2, but some of the point scoring was brilliant, and they just looked like a totally different prospect. There's no aimless balls going inside. There's no real 50-50. It was a couple of 50-50 balls now, but generally the ball going in is sympathetic to the forward line. Couple of things here. There were 4 points to 1 up, within 10 minutes, I'd say. Then they got Seamus Kennedy got a goal, lovely finish after an overlap, I think it was. And then when they had the foot on Laois's throat, and they just kept it there. Then I think it was 1-4 to a point. It was 1-8 to 2, 1-12 to 2, 1-17 to 7. And even when there was a tiny bit of a lull in the second half, Jake Morris came on and injected another bit of kind of pace into it. So they went from being 6 up to being 10 up to being 13 up to being 17 up to being 20 up. Do you know what I mean? And I think that's a really good sign of a team not switching off. It's a really good sign of lads knowing that they have to keep the foot to the floor. And I'm not going to read too much into the game itself, but I'll read a fair bit into what Cahill, Bevins and co are trying to do in Tipperary. And it looks like they're all singing off the same hymn sheet now. And that's hugely promising, I'd say, from a Tipp point of view.
Yeah, 14 different scorers. I mean, that kind of says it all, really.
Can I just say something as well? Bonner Matter wasn't one of them. And he actually played a different role and was as effective as we've seen in the county game in many, many years. He was in around full forward. A lot of the time, Sean Ryan was playing in at the edge. Bonner was sometimes playing maybe 20 yards in front of him. Then at times there was 2 men inside, but Bonner played inside quite a bit and was coming out. He looked very sharp. His touch was very good. I don't know if you saw Seamus Kennedy's goal, but Bonner did a lovely roll, lift and spin all in one motion, and that kind of set up the goal. But he looked really, really sharp. He got the guts of about 50 minutes into him. Noel McGrath was the same. John McGrath starting his first game for Tipp since he did the Achilles, to the best of my knowledge. First competitive game anyway. It's going to probably take him a bit of time to probably bed back in, but he was pretty sharp as well. Of the newcomers, Keano Dwyer was unlucky with a goal chance he had. Ed Rowland made a good save down low. He ended up with 2 points. Same with Sean Ryan. There's probably going to be a fair bit of, we have Seamus Callan to come back and a few other kind of big names. Jason Ford didn't start as well. But signs are that there are plenty of options there anyway. Now, Liam Cahill did say that Ger Brown is out for the year with a knee injury. They didn't realise maybe how serious it was. Connor Stakelum, who was flying it. I really like him. I just think he's a brilliant link player, and he's always efficient and ruthless on the ball. He had 3 points. He limped off with a hamstring early in the second half. But yeah, I would say from a Tipp point of view, a lot of positive signs of what's coming ahead. But we'll judge a lot more after Kilkenny this weekend.
What about Laois?
Yeah, would have been disappointed with Laois, to be honest with you. Paddy Purcell didn't start. He came on at half-time, made a difference. Ross King didn't start either. He came in, he was quiet. He only really got on the ball near the end of the game. They just physically probably looked like they were well off the pace. And now at inter-county level, if you're physically off it, it doesn't really matter how good your hurling is at inter-county level. It's grand. Like, if you can get the ball, you know, your wrists are as good or your shooting is as good, but they weren't able to get on the ball a lot of the time. There were probably few of them that came away with much credit. I'd say Tomas Keys and James Keys were two of the few that did. I think Tomas hit 4 points from the middle of the field and James hit 2 from wing forward. But they were well off it. No point in saying any different. They were well off it. And while it was more competitive in the second half, they just were never able to get to the pitch of it. And I'd say it's worrying enough for what's coming down the line as well. I think they have Antrim in one of their last games, which will be, you know, their biggest game. That'll be their relegation semi-final, if you get me, to try and avoid that relegation playoff, probably with Westmeath.
Was Jason Ford even on the panel? Was he carrying an injury?
No, he was listed, yeah, but just didn't come in. I don't know if that's anything to do with what we described about, you know, there having to be a certain dynamic in the forward line and certain types of players, and not too much of the one player, if you get me, and a lot of mobility. But he was listed, but he didn't feature.
Yeah, how did Noel McGrath play in midfield?
Noel was all right. Not probably one of his, you know, more influential games. Hit a point, I think. But again, it's funny. Like, you wouldn't say, and I'm not having a go at Noel right here because he's one of the best players of his generation. He's probably not one of the fastest players in the game, but he's always moving. And it makes such a difference. Like, you've played inside, particularly in the full-back line, maybe, you know, where it's just, you know, it's all bang, 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 and you can get caught for maybe pace in there. Noel is out around the middle of the park. He's always moving. He's always on the front foot. He's never flat-footed. So he always gets himself into positions. It was the sort of game where a lot of lads played well, but it was probably one of Noel's quieter games, I'd say.
Yeah, and Seamus Kennedy then, he scored the goal. By the way, I think physically Tipperary looked like they've taken a bit of a step up. Or is that just me, or maybe is that the tight kit or whatever?
Yeah, I don't know. Is it like the Dubs back in the day where we used to say that they had personalised kits nearly built around their own bodies to make them look even bigger? But they do look physically very strong, imposing. I thought Ronan Matter was very good in defence as well. And he wasn't driving ball maybe as much as before. And he took a couple of shots on, but I think he took shots on when they were there to be taken on, not when you're on the back foot or, you know, standing 100 yards out. He was more in around the 65 when he was taking scores on. Michael Breen at full back I think it's going to be an interesting one over time. My only concern from him as a full back is I think he tries to do too much sometimes.
As in, he attacks ball when he probably just needs to be safe and let the forward score a point and protect the goal.
Yeah, or just spoil. I wonder it, and that's something that's going to have to be developed. I wonder, is that something that's in him? He's played as a forward for a long time. He's obviously played in defence before, but just that spoiling effect of you don't actually need to touch the ball. And at county level, just say he's marking Gillan, would say in a championship game, he doesn't actually need to touch the ball to have a big impact on the game. If anything, if he doesn't touch the ball, but his man doesn't touch the ball, he's had as much of an impact. So I just wonder, can he develop that spoiling tactic? It's like it's gung-ho for every ball, and it doesn't need to be. That's just my opinion. I was just looking at him the other night.
And then I'm thinking, is it a bit like when Paddy Maher went full back, because he's so used to out-hurling his man, or certainly trying to out-hurl his man, that he's going up for ball when it isn't really there to go for. And you will get punished when you're that close to goal. You know, I'm thinking the Johnny Glynn performance, even though that was only just one day. But maybe, yeah, well, that's something that I'm sure that they'll look at. They probably will see that.
Breen missed the ball in the first half, and it was just before half-time. Forget who had the least chance, but he missed the pickup. It was a clear goal chance after Breen kind of... I just think maybe was trying to do a bit too much, but that's something that they'll work on, I'm sure.
Yeah, sure. It's only his first proper competitive game playing there in a long time. After the game, Liam Cahill was asked about the likes of Seamus Callanan, Bonner Maher and Ger Brown. He goes, Seamus working behind the scenes with us in training, working really hard, and I expect to hopefully see Seamus over the next couple of weeks. Bonner retains all his energy and enthusiasm that he had since the first day he joined. He's a big leader in our dressing room and he shows that on the field as well. We're very happy to get him back onto the field and get good quality hurling into him. Ger unfortunately has a recurring ongoing knee injury. When we investigated it further during the week, it showed up that it will require surgery. Unfortunate for Ger and unfortunate for us as well that Ger will likely miss the remainder of the season through that injury. Very disappointing news. But Ger is very young and he's a guy who'll be back very soon when he gets that sorted. I think he's 24 now. And with obviously sadly losing Dylan Quirk and of course cruciate injuries to Craig Morgan and Barry Heffernan, Tipperary don't have their strongest hand.